acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we gather on today and show my respect to their elders past and present. We have some apologies today. Mayor Gordon Bradbury, the member for Kira Ryan Park, the member for Wollongong Noreen Hay, and previous member for Throsby Jenny George. Friends, we've come together today at Port Kembla to let the O'Farrell government know that this is our port and we will not stand by while they try to sell it or give a 99-year lease to some multinational company. It is speculated that whichever private sector company snaps up Port Botany, they will also get Port Kembla. The O'Farrell government is getting its advice from none other than the investment bank Morgan Stanley. Well, you know what, Barry O'Farrell, Duncan Gay and your Morgan Stanley mates, you can't have our port. Now, a bit later we'll be trying to make a symbolic barricade around the port with members of the community. But first we have a few speakers to address us. And the first is Ian Fulford, who's the President of the Port Kembla Chamber of Commerce.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and passionate defenders of our port.
Can't hear down the back.
As the President of the Chamber of Commerce, we vehemently oppose the privatisation of the port, and the reason why we oppose the privatisation of the port because it just doesn't make economic sense. It's a nonsense. The first aspect of the sale of the port, it's a lease. Are we going to see $500 million upfront fee? Or is it going to be less than $5 million per annum at today's rate that will carry on over the next 99 years? May I say that the port is profitable. It's very, very profitable. It's making between $25 and $50 million net profit per annum. Why would you sell an asset that's earning you $50 million a year, leasing it out for $5 million? Can anyone here tell me the economic rationale of that?
No.
So when we get the first 500 million, what's going to happen to it? 100 million is going to the Dumbarton-Maldon rail link. $100 million. Well, that leaves another $1 billion for the government to find, which is our money, the taxpayers' money, to plug up the holes to get the Maldon-Dunbarton link completed. That's on top of the $2 billion that the government is purportedly putting into the port to develop it to its potential. So what we have is our port being sold for $500 million and the taxpayer having to pick up a $2 billion tab to bring it up to scratch. Then we got the Maldon-Dumbarton rail link where we're going to fall another 900 million to $1 billion short on today's figures. So there's $3 billion that the taxpayer has to subsidise the new owners. The new owners apparently, from all reports, aren't making any contributions. So why should we be subsidising a sell-off of an asset that is extremely profitable for peanuts? No one can answer that question. I don't know why. Now, even when the Maldon-Dunbarton rail link is completed and the $2 billion is pumped into the port, there's another problem. Integrating the two developments into one. Can you imagine 20 or 30 2-kilometre trains trying to get into Port Kembla? How are they going to do that? So if we've got 20 or 30 2-kilometre trains, that's 60 kilometres of trains that you're parking. How do you accommodate between the Maldon-Dumbarton rail link and the port for this to happen? Then there's another critical aspect that's going to impact on Port Kembla, not only Port Kembla, but the whole of Illawarra. The fact is that Every 10 years, nearly $1 billion is brought into the Illawarra from people commuting to Sydney and to regional areas outside the Illawarra. The rail links and the road links are going to be choked with port movement freight. Now, it just doesn't seem feasible that this $1 billion is going to continue to flow back into Port Kembla and the Illawarra if all the infrastructure is overloaded, choked, and there doesn't seem to be a logical, integrated plan to bring all of these developments together. So, I guess, Noreen, that's just unfortunate. Where are all of our politicians? Where are they? Good, Stephen, I see Stephen Jones. Well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you. Well, the fact is, our mayor wasn't here, right? But anyhow, he's not really a politician, is he? All right. Now, so I guess Noreen, or Noreen's helpers, when you go to Canberra and we call on the government to ensure that the Port of Port Kembla remains in public ownership with continued investment. The fact is that the port is profitable, and the reason why I wore the red shirt, it's symbolic of three things to me. A government that is bleeding because of irresponsible economic management. The fact is that Port Kembla and the township of Port Kembla are bled dry, and you only have to have a look at the Port Authority dumping the asbestos fines on the ground. So that's just another typical example of basically their attitude towards Port Kembla and the Illawarra. And the third thing is there's been a lot of blood, sweat and tears from the Maritime Services people and the wharfies. So I guess on that note, we really need to ask the questions, do we have responsible economic management going on here, or are we just being sold out?
Be Stephen Jones. I'm sure Stephen's familiar to all of you. He's a very strong supporter of the...
Thanks, Naomi. I'm here with my colleague, the member for Cunningham, Sharon Bird, and we're here because we're standing shoulder to shoulder with the people from the Chamber of Commerce, the local community, the Trades and Labour Council and all the union affiliates, and everybody who stands shoulder to shoulder to oppose the privatisation of this port. I've only got two things to say. That is, I oppose the privatisation of the port because it's a dud deal for the Illawarra. It's a dud deal for the Illawarra. Even if you supported the privatisation, which I don't, but even if you did, to flog off something which is worth north of $500 million and give $100 million back to the local community, that's a dud deal for the Illawarra. But it's also, and this is the second point, it's a dud deal for the taxpayers of New South Wales. Because week in, week out, when people are saying we need more money for our hospitals, we need more money for our schools, we need more money for our rail system, we need more money for our road system, the New South Wales government complains about the fact that they've got an eroding tax base. The New South Wales government complains about the fact that they have not got enough money to pay for all those services they deliver. Well, why on earth are they flogging an asset which delivers a profit year in, year out, when they haven't got the money to pay for our hospitals and pay for our schools? Something doesn't add up. It's a dud deal for the Illawarra, and it's a dud deal for New South Wales. Thank you very much.
Hosty Sellers, who's provided all the water that we've been provided with for today, and the Maritime Mining and Power Credit Union, who's provided all of the sausages, and Diane Hyde, florist in Warilla, for the balloons.